93, 93, 93. This is Aman Asharenew from asharenew.com. Today I'm going to speak on karma doesn't work like you think it does. Here's why. So when we think about karma, we think about like somebody's outcome. Basically, if you do bad things to people, well, bad things are going to happen to you. Or if you do good things to people, good things will happen to you. Well, that's not necessarily the case. What I mean by that is, if a person is going around, let's just say, shooting people, just to use an extreme example, when they get shot eventually, most people would say, well, they were going around shooting people, so eventually that they were going to get shot, and that's just their karma. Well, that's not necessarily the case, because if we reverse it, that would also mean that people that work hard will eventually, you can say, reach success. But that's not necessarily the case. We have people that work very hard, but that are unrecognized or unknown. And they probably work harder than most people we know. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're going to get the amount of recognition that they feel that they deserve. And also, every so-called person that shoots people don't get shot. Everybody that has shot somebody didn't necessarily end up getting a bullet returned to them in every circumstance. That didn't happen every time. Now that may happen a lot of times, but that's not what happens every time. It's the same thing when we hear the phrase. Essentially, if you get into the streets, the only outcomes you're going to have is death or jail. And as we see, that's not always the case either. It sounds good, but some people successfully got out of the streets without having to lose their life or their freedom. Now, that may be less likely, but it's still a possibility. No one is essentially, just because you engage in certain activity, that you have to deal with certain consequences, and that's just inevitable. That's not necessarily the case. It's just that when you follow certain patterns, you come up against certain adversities. For example, if you are unrighteous and you are doing unrighteous things happen to you, not because of what you were doing to others, because it's because of how you are. It's not based on the action. See, we're dealing with karma. Karma is more so your fate. Karma is more so the body that you reincarnate into after the fact. If we want to really deal with karma for what it's really about, karma is going to decide your next reincarnation versus, well, who comes after you in this life. See, karma goes beyond this life. So if you were doing all type of craziness to people, it may not ever be returned to you in this particular life. You may have to pay for that in your next life. So it's not just limited to, well, just because you do certain things to people that it will return to you in this life. That's not necessarily the case. What ends up returning to people, it ain't even that the energy is being returned. It's just that when you are a certain type of way, it's going to put you in the midst of certain individuals. So basically, you can say if you're in the streets, you will be amongst people that are in street activity. And when you are amongst people that are involved in street activity, you don't necessarily have to be doing anything that they're doing to pay a consequence. Meaning there's people that got shot that never shot anybody. So what about those people? There's people that have been shot that didn't shoot anybody. So would you say that that's their karma? Well, how would it be their karma if they never shot anybody but they themselves got shot? And also, it wouldn't be the other person's karma if then that person that got shot shoots them at a later date. It wouldn't. They didn't get shot because that was their karma. Because it was just inevitable that that person was gonna catch up to them, catch up with them, and and use not use, but to get the get back. That's not always the case. What happens is again, it's based on how we are. It's who we are. Meaning, if you are unrighteous and you place yourself in unrighteous situations, that's the consequence. So if somebody end up pulling a gun out and shooting you or trying to harm you or does something dangerous, it ain't because of what you did to somebody else. It's because of the situation and the environment you placed yourself in. That's the consequence. The consequence is the situation you placed yourself in. You placed yourself in a situation that you could be shot at, or somebody could do something dangerous to you. It ain't because of what you did to someone else. It's because of the situation or the environment you place yourself in. So when you put yourself in dangerous situations and environment, dangerous things happen. And it ain't because of what you did to someone else. It's just because when you are amongst chaos, the possibilities are that chaos may happen to you because you place yourself amongst chaos or in the midst of chaos. You may not pay your karma till essentially the next life. You may not pay your karma in this life. So again, that's why everybody who engages in these activities, just as an example, just because you shoot people don't mean you're going to get shot. Just because you're in street life don't mean you're going to end up in jail or dead. That's not a 100% fact. It's more so like the feds. Like when people say the feds have a 99% conviction rate or a 98% conviction rate, that may be true, but it's not 100%. Why isn't it 100%? Because according to karma, as we put it, if you do the crime, you have to do the time. If we are going based on karma. So if the feds have a 98% conviction rate, why is it not 100? Because if you did the crime, then you have to do the time. So it should be 100% conviction rate. But the reason why it's 98% is because it's not always the case 100% of the time. It may be the case 98% of the time, but it's not 100%. That means there's always 2% of a chance that a person walks free. So that's essentially what I'm trying to get you to notice. We tend to pay attention to the greater number. We tend to pay attention to the 98%. So that's why people feel, well, 98% of the people end up dead or in jail, which may be the case. But what about those 2% of the people that didn't? We still have to count them. So even if they may be unicorns or mythological creatures in our eyes, we still have to take into consideration that everybody doesn't suffer the same fate. And it's not about what you did or what you didn't do. It's about if you are amongst those 2% to escape with your life and your freedom, then you have beat the odds. And if you are able to beat the odds, that has nothing to do with karma, because if we deal with what we think karma to represent, there is no way to beat the odds if we define karma in the way that we have been defining it. You should not be able to beat any odds if whatever consequence you have is based on your own karma. How are you able to beat the odds if the reason why you're going to jail in the first place is because of your karma? So the person that beats the odds, that means that they beat karma too? Or is it that karma was never being applied to that particular situation in the first place? We have just misdefined karma. Now, of course, I did a video about karma years ago, but this is more so how I'm feeling about it currently. That do not allow karma to be a reason why you don't do what you must do. Because a lot of us do or don't do things, rather, because we feel like we have to deal with karma. And again, all karma is not bad karma. Karma could also be good or positive. But again, as we see, just because a person does positive things doesn't mean that they're going to get positive results. So what ends up happening is more about beating the odds. So for the people that are successful, for the people that do get rewarded like we feel they should, it's because they beat the odds. It's not just because they worked hard. They had to work hard and beat the odds. Just like the person in the streets, they had to navigate the streets and beat the odds, which again is not an easy task to perform. It's possible, but it's not easy. It's not easy to be in the 2% of the people that go free. It's easy to be in the 98%. It's hard to be in that 2%. So what I encourage is be a part of that 2% of the people that did what they had to do, whatever you feel you have to do. And then you don't have to suffer the consequences of karma, because karma really don't give a fuck about what you're doing in the first place at all. Karma is not there documenting your journey and determining when is an appropriate time to get revenge on you. That's not how karma works. Because again, if that was the case, then we would see a more balanced world. If every time a person did something that they get payback, or every time a person did something bad or good, they will receive the appropriate reward or penalty. But again, that's not necessarily the case if you beat the odds. So that's why I am encouraging you. You must master the odds. It's not about mastering your karma. It's about mastering the odds, which is the numbers. The odds represent the numbers. So you must master the numbers. You must master the equations. You must master the numerology, the geometry, the gematria. That's what you're supposed to be here mastering, because that's what will allow you to beat the odds. So if somebody is coming to, let's just say, take your life or take your freedom, you will know how to navigate out of that situation, because you're not dependent on karma. Like, okay, basically, like some people say, well, God got me. You're not that person. Oh, when it's my time, it's my time. You're not that person. You're not putting your fate in the hands of karma, because essentially you're going to lose. That's just like playing a game of blackjack and you don't know how to play the game itself. You're going to end up losing. Not because of the odds, not because of karma, because you simply don't know how to play the game. And you also don't win because it's karma. You win because you beat the odds. Meaning every time you walk into a casino, the odds are against you. So if you do actually win, you didn't win because it was your karma. You won because you were able to beat the odds, because they were already stacked against you. So that's why when people say, we came into this life, we came into this world with the odds stacked against us, that's not because of karma. That's a whole different law. That means we came here to master the odds. We came here to beat the odds. We came here to conquer the odds, the numbers, the equations, the matrix. That's what we came here to do. So when you put your focus on beating the odds or mastering the odds, and you're not thinking about karma, you're not thinking about what you should or shouldn't be doing. You're thinking about whatever I decide to do, good, bad, or ugly. I must make sure that I beat the odds. That's how I'm going to be able to maintain my life and my freedom, by beating the odds. Not by putting my life in the hands of karma, or putting my life in the hands of some divine being, or putting my life in the hands of anybody else or anything else. It's simply based on your own mathematics, your own equations, your own numbers. If you master your own numbers, can't nobody master them for you, not even the divine. That's why we are here to master our own charts, not God. God cannot master your chart for you. Only you can master your chart. But again, that's why you're probably not supposed to know that information now, are you? That's why it's forbidden. Because you mastering your odds is something you're not supposed to know how to do. That's why it's forbidden. It's not forbidden because of karma. Well, if you deal with dark magic, then dark things will happen to you. That's more karmic. That's if you deal with the dark, that you're able to beat the odds and master the dark. That's what it means to beat the odds. So set your intention on mastering the odds and beating the odds. Master your numbers, because everything is numbers at the end of the day, right? So if you are a master of the numbers, you are a master of your reality. So with that, I bear peace. 93, 93, 93.